So, are you ready to get real?
Yes.
If you are, then our next series of talks is on getting real. We're going to get real about what is important, an important part of an aspect of our life. And by bringing a large dose of reality, and that's with a big R, which means God, into our lives. And I want us to talk about an idea this morning that's really prevalent in New Thought. And that idea is that life, or God, gives us lessons difficult lessons at times to test our faith, our spiritual resolve. But I don't think that's true. Does life really give us lessons? Does life really test our faith? You've probably heard this statement that's been attributed to Mother Teresa. She said, "I know God won't give me any more than I can handle. I just wish he didn't trust me so much." But is there really a force outside of ourselves that is testing us and laying adversity on us? I want to suggest that the answer to that is no. I don't believe that life or God gives us lessons. And if you believe that, I hope you're going to release that idea. I don't believe that God is trying to test our faith. So I hope if you believe that you'll release that one too. So Charles Fillmore said that the love of God for his children is beyond description. A love so tender, so deep, that it cannot be mentioned in the same breath as the ordinary love known by the world. The great love of being is deeper and wider than any thoughts or words that you and I have command of. I left his quote there somewhere in the middle, sorry. But I absolutely, completely, and unequivocally believe that there is no room in that statement for there to be a God that tests us and gives us difficult challenges. So what do I believe about these experiences that we all have? And some of these things, these experiences are challenges, and some of them are pretty tough. They're difficult. They have pain and adversity. So take a breath. It's personal responsibility at a high level. I believe that the essence of our being, our true self, is what is calling the lessons that we need. It's not something outside of ourselves that we can blame. We're doing it. We know that we feel separate from God. We know that there's some place that we need to grow. And so we call to us something that will help us grow, something that will help us expand, something that will help us to show the face of God, to show our divinity. I don't know if any of you remember Notes from the Universe by Mike, what was his name? Can't remember. I had this note from the universe that I had it on my computer. It said, "If it weren't for your challenges, how would you ever know that there are things that you still misunderstand?" You wouldn't. So bless your challenges, embrace them, give thanks for them. And then he went on to say, "Tally ho ho ho, the universe." But really, darn, it's so much easier to blame someone else, even if it's God, rather than to take responsibility for it. But what if you and I could bless, embrace, and love each challenge that we got because we knew it was something that was here for us, for our expansion, for our growth, so that we could reach new levels of understanding, really for us to become more and more the face of God, more and more of who we truly are at our core, what do you suppose would happen? Here's a parable, a modern parable. There was a girl who had some problems and she was experiencing these challenges. They were significant and she didn't know how she was going to face them, and she wanted to give up. She was tired of the struggle and tired of fighting. And it seemed as one problem was solved, another one would surface. So she went to her father for comfort and support. And her father, who was a chef, took down 3 pots and filled them with water and put them on the stove and brought them to a boil. And he took out some carrots and put them in one. He put some eggs in the next one. He put some coffee beans in the third one. And he sat down and they just sat there, and the girl was kind of impatient. She wasn't getting what she wanted. He let them boil for 20 minutes. And then he fished out the carrots and put them in a bowl. He fished out the eggs and put them in a bowl. And he ladled some coffee in a cup. And he says, well, what do you have? What do you see? And she said, well, carrots, eggs, and coffee. And he said, well, come closer. Taste the carrots. And she did. And you know what? They were soft and mushy, and they didn't have any taste left. And then he said, taste the eggs. And she broke the shell, and it was so hard, it was inedible. And finally he asked her to sip the coffee, and she smiled as she tasted the rich flavor. Confused and a little annoyed at all the time that had passed and the lack of comfort and support that she felt that her father wasn't providing, she said, well, it's a nice experiment, Dad, but what does that have to do with me and my problems? And he explained that the coffee and the eggs and the ground and the carrots each had faced the same severe adversity. They had all been in the same amount of time in the boiling water. And yet each one of them reacted differently. The carrot went in strong and tough, but it came out soft and mushy and weak. And the egg, which had been soft inside with that thin shell, fragile to begin with, got hard inside. The ground coffee beans were unique. Even though they were boiled for 20 minutes, they didn't change. What they did is they changed the world around them. They changed the water. And he went on to say to his daughter, when adversity knocks on your door, how do you respond? Are you a carrot that's strong and tough, but with pain and adversity you wilt and you become soft? Do you lose your strength? Or are you the egg that starts out soft inside and becomes hardened? Your shell may look the same on the outside, but inside, you're no longer the same. Or are you like the coffee beans that didn't change? They stayed true to who they were. And in the face of real adversity, they changed the water. They changed the world around them. They changed the water into coffee. He then said, my darling daughter, the best comfort and advice I can give to you is to be like the coffee bean. When things are at their worst, remember who you are. Stay true to your nature, and you will change the world around you. And I will add, you will become more and more of who you were meant to be. We aren't here on this earth plane merely for success. We're here to learn and to grow. And it is guaranteed that you and I will call to us what we need in order to grow and evolve and awaken to our higher purposes. So accepting that, I have 5 quick ideas that I want to bring to your awareness as you look at life lessons. First, we can't escape our growth experiences as much as we would like to. There's a story about Ptolemy, the king of Alexandria once expressed impatience to Euclid about trying to learn geometry, and he said, "Isn't there a shorter way to learn geometry?" And Euclid said, "Sire, in the country there are two kinds of roads, the hard road for the common people and the easy road for the royal family. But in geometry, all must go the same way. There's no royal road to learning." And guess what? In our journey, it's all a royal road, and we all have to take it. That's the path that you and I signed up for, to have this human experience. Second, our lessons keep getting repeated until we get them. Sometimes we get a little wake-up call, but we pull the covers over our head and decide we will stay asleep and will slumber a little longer. We may ignore, resist, rationalize, or blame for a considerable amount of time. That's okay, because our schooling is self-paced. You get to choose how long it is you're going to take to learn, and how hard and how big those lessons have to be. And I know this from personal experience. I couldn't wait to get away from home and away from my father, who was an alcoholic. But would you believe that I met and married two different men who turned out to be very much like my father? I had to do the work and grow and change until I could meet Gerald, who was nothing like my father. And have you ever known anyone who went from job to job and they always complained about somebody, that they weren't understood, that nobody liked them? Or have you known anybody that had one roommate after the other and they always found fault with that roommate? The third thing is that the lesson gets more challenging. If you and I don't get the easy one, it's going to get harder. Resistance reaps more dramatic consequences over time. Not to punish us, but we're calling in the stronger army. We're saying, "Well, I couldn't get that lesson. Let me have it a little better." Minister David Owen Ritz once said, if we ignore these little lessons that come to us, they go away, change their clothes, and bring back their friends. The fourth thing is that while it may be daunting, you and I can grow. We can always grow. Just as when learning the rules of math, as they did for Ptolemy, the king of Alexandria, the life's challenges may seem daunting or overwhelming. Nonetheless, you and I have the ability to grow from every experience that we have, to release what does not serve us, to make a deeper connection with the God of our being. At any moment, you and I have the ability to make good choices and to start being who we were meant to be. We are always at the point of having the freedom to let God be God in us. Charles Fillmore in Atom Smashing Power of Mind said, every problem of life can be successfully solved if we begin with the use of the I am on the various planes of mind. It is not that we are alone. It is when we realize that we can connect ourselves with the Father, Mother, God, with the Christ mind, with the universal mind, and prove what Jesus said. I speak not from myself, but from the Father abiding in me, doeth his work. That our potential almightiness begins to show. The purpose of every growth experience is to heal the belief in separation. In every step of the way, the source of infinite good is always conspiring for our good. So, and it's as close as our breath, as near as our hands and feet. And the fifth thing I want to say about our challenges is when they come to us and we don't recognize the challenge, we get excessive when we said that. But I'm going to talk to you about how you recognize a challenge when it first appears. When life lesson is at its smallest. Every time something changes in our world and we resist. Every time something changes in our life and we resist. Every time something changes in our life and we resist. We invite that challenge to go out and change its clothes and find some friends and come back. And it happens right here at Unity of Merritt Island. It happens in every spiritual community. Those of us who are old-timers in Unity are being asked to change what we do, to give up some things that we love, to grow. There's a church right now on the coast of Florida that is a beautiful church, and they have beautiful music each week. And it's someone who plays from the symphony who plays the piano, and there is a soloist. And the music is beautiful, but it rarely touches your heart. It never involves you. It doesn't encourage you to grow. And they don't want to give it up, the old-timers. They have a new minister. They've waited almost 5 years to find a minister. They finally found a minister. They found a minister young enough to attract young people, and they have young people coming in. And you know what they won't do? They won't change their music. They won't allow a screen. And every time this minister wants to make a change, she'll be doing something and all of a sudden they shut it down. She wanted to do some small groups. And she had them all set up. And they said, well, how can we let our people go to people's homes and trust that they'll be safe? They are missing the opportunity to build community. So what's happening is that church is slowly becoming smaller and smaller, and they don't know it, but I do. Their minister's looking for another place. They told her they wanted to grow. They told her that they wanted to be vibrant, that they wanted to transform lives, that they wanted to be a forefront in the community. And guess what? It was all lip service. You and I are being invited to change, and the reason we're being invited to change is because that in the United States, the number of people who go to the church is going like this. Yes, there's some few big churches that we look at, we see, but it's the statistic I saw was that 15,000 churches closed last year. The average number of churches that were closed had been for closing had been 4,000, with 3,000 more coming online. So it was, kind of a net loss of 1,000 churches every year. But in 2025, 15,000 churches closed. Here's some good news. the Gen Zers, and the Gen Zers are the ones that are 14 to 29, they are having a little resurgence. They want church. But guess what? The church they want does not look like us. That's the hard fact. What they want is they want authenticity. They want community. They want mental health. They want to plan a place that they can deal with their anxiety. They want shared leadership. And here's the one that puts the fear in my heart, is they want structure and solid spirituality. Now, I came to Unity because I didn't want any structure. I was tired of that. So here we have the new people coming that would come and would be interested. They want structure. And so how is that affecting me? It means that I'm talking more and more about what you and I have to do. You'll notice that many Sundays I give you homework. I give you a handout. I'm trying to put structure in place. We have a choice. We can be one of those churches that in 2026 or 27 or 28 closes our doors. Or we can find a way to be relevant. And I think that that's sort of what we're doing with the gathering and with all the things that we're trying to do. So I'm asking you, when you see that we ask you to change something, that you take a deep breath and you don't say, I don't like that. I'm going to pick on you, Chris. On a special service at Christmas, we didn't sing the peace song. And you came to me and said, in 30 years, I've never been to a church service that didn't sing the peace song. Guess what?
I said that.
You said that. How many of you have been to a Unity church that didn't sing the peace song?
Not very often.
Not very often, but you'll find that more and more they're not singing the peace song every Sunday. And why? Because we say we don't have any dogma. But guess what peace song is? It's dogma. But it's also structure. So I'm trying to deal with that. I'm trying to make that. Where do we have structure and where do we have change? How do we make ourselves attractive to a person who walks in the door here the first time? What can we do to make them feel comfortable? What is it that we might do that would make them feel awkward? That's what you and I are called to do in this time. That's one of those challenges. It's one of those adversities that this community is facing, an adversity. And we have the opportunity to respond by looking for ways to grow and to change. And that's what's true in our life. It's true in every area of our life. I remember when cars started changing, and I remember my husband saying, I can't open the hood and change the spark plugs anymore. You know, it's getting too technical. But we sure do like that camera that shows us how to back up. We sure do like that light that shows us that there's something in the lane next to us. It's all about change. Every change that comes along is the beginning of a life lesson for you. And to recap, we can't escape our growth experiences. They're repeated until we get them. They get more challenging. They may seem daunting, but we can handle them. And fifth, the way they show up is they show up as change. And so I want to end with another parable. It's a story about a group of women in a Bible study. The women were studying a passage in Malachi 3:3, which says, He will sit as refiner and purifier of silver. And the verse puzzled the women. They didn't know, what did that mean? One of the women offered to find out about the process of refining silver and get back to the group the next time they met. And so that week she called a silversmith and made an appointment to watch him work. And she didn't mention anything about the reason, but she just said she was curious. And as she watched the silversmith, he held a piece of silver over the fire and let it heat up. He explained that in refining silver, one needs to hold the silver in the middle of the fire where the flame is the hottest to burn away all the impurities. And she thought about how we get in hot spots in our life and blame God for putting us there. And she thought again about that verse, he sits as a refiner and purifier, what that could mean. And she asked the silversmith if it was true that he had to sit there watching the piece of silver the whole time it was in the fire. And he said, yes, not only do I have to sit here holding it, but I have to keep my eye on the silver the entire time it's in the fire. If it's left a moment too long in the flames, it could be ruined. And she was silent. She said, well, how do you know when the silver is fully refined? And he said, that's easy, when I can see my image in it. And the moral of that is, if you are being held to fire, remember you aren't being tested. You are being called to it. You have called it to you for one reason and one reason only, so that the image of God can be more fully seen as you.